Hey, Dean Pawns 098, haha. That's a brilliant username, by the way. So, to I thought it would just be a bit easier to make a little video to reply to some of your questions because I can demonstrate a bit more of the concepts and talk about it a bit more loosely. First off, I just want to go over SDKs. I'm not sure how much you've actually used them, so I just want to show you some things, and that's basically that. If we do, and I set this as my driver, the fact that you can have the inputs of your driven object controlled by multiple attributes, and that's just one a thing that I want to mention. So if we do like X does rotate, scale and rotate, so we do that, we set X to 1, and if we do that here, so that moves that over there now, but if we set this to Y as well, let's do that, we can do this also, so we can also have the same, and you can actually blend the two as well, which will give you like a bit of a strange counter movement going on. And you can see that these will now have blend weighted nodes here, and that is basically, if we go to the node editor and see, you can see that for each of these you now have animation curves, which will go into a blend weighted node because they're controlling like the same value basically. So you can see this one, the rotate said, gets two different rotations now because it will be coming from the translate X and the translate Y. So that's just something to mention because that allows you to do like a facial rig where you can have a bunch of different attributes, controllers, driven by the same, a lot of joints driven by different attributes to create different poses and blend those poses together. Somewhat nice sometimes, depending on like how extreme the poses are. I just wanted to cover that real quick because this is basically a facial rig that I did while attending a course by Judd Simantov on facial rigging for games. This was after he left Naughty Dog, but this is basically set up with how they did it at Naughty Dog, with joints for the face, but just using like standard SDK in Maya. So the setup here is basically you have all these locators on the face, which is driven by attributes, which are on these controllers. So you can see I have like jaw open, lips part, lip pucker, chin raiser, like all these different things. And you can see since they're pink now, on this control will control in some way will affect all these different locators depending on which attributes I turn on. So, and I've got for like the nose, and I've got for the eyebrows, no sorry, for the eyes, and then eyebrows as well. So all these joints are skinned differently as well, of course, around, and then yeah, they're controlled by these locators. So if I just hide these joints again, you can see that when I play it back, these locators, can I just get rid of this? The locators move around, and this is basically due to the animation that I put on here. I actually just rigged up this part of the face, the left side, so that's why the right side is looking so dead, because it is. And basically this allows you to do a lot of things. If I zero all this stuff out first, and do that, do that, and if I turn off these, now I can do like a jaw open close, and well, let's just keep this on, and you can see all these different locators moving and just doing a tiny bit of movement as well. And you can then, when even if we have jaw open fully closed, we can do like a lip pucker, and you can see all these locators keep moving because they will basically have the animation that is needed for that lip pucker to go into that pose. So basically I've gone through, and for every single pose on this rig I've placed these locators and did like a set driving key. That's basically how this is made. So to make this point, to make this pose, I basically moved all these locators, and as I was doing this, I was tweaking the weighting a bit as well, so it was like a bit of a backwards and forwards process. But that is basically how you set up a joint-based rig like this. You will have your control interface like this, where you can just have, I want this pose, you turn on that pose, and all the locators joints will be driven. So this is what I've been talking about, is you wouldn't connect up something like Faceware directly to your joints to create the poses, because if you did, then Faceware only tracks in 2D. It basically tracks to see similarities within a 2D space. So it will track for features. So it can say, I think this pose is on now. It looks like this is on now. It will track like the eyebrows. It will track how they look and stuff like that. So what it will do internally is track that in 2D, or some of these programs do a 3D thing as well, but I'm not sure how well that actually is. And they will basically give you an output value. So when what you define as a jaw open, when you hit that jaw open, it will send out a value of 1 or something. And you can basically, that's what you have to do, is you have to go through your whole rig and say, okay, when jaw open is 1 in Faceware, it should be this value, like 10, on my rig on this attribute. And that's basically what Faceware will hook up to. So when you connect it into Maya, it will go through all the data that it has captured, and it will see, okay, now jaw open is at like 0.5, so then this attribute should be at 5 because it's half of 10, right? And it sees lip pucker is at like 0.2, so this should be at 2. Also, like the eyebrows the brows might be lowered, so let's take them down. Like they might be 0.8, so let's put them at 8. There might be like a bit of squint, not squint, that looks awful. Eyeball, you know, and cheek raise. Oh, did I do the right side? Oh my god. When did I do that? Whoops. So yeah, and then, because here's the thing as well, you will have stuff like, you often want to move different parts of the face. It can, really depending on the character, you can have, you want to add some extra movement or some extra special thing when a special pose is reached, which is why you need to connect to this interface, and so that you just know that, so that Faceware knows when jaw open is on, it will set this attribute to on. And this will be useful for, like you say in your post as well, if you have one character where you say intensity and attribute, well, a group of joints, you do, quote unquote, let's just, I want to get away, like this is a group in Maya which contains things. Um, these joints that you see here, they're not grouped together. They're driven by set-driven keys together. That's like the grouping, but it's a bit of a different terminology, right? So be careful with that. Um, so you say that what if, for instance, on we had this guy, and for like a jaw uh, or like a uh, lip stretch, right? Take it back. For instance, you had, let's just say this is one Maya unit, right? But then you had a dragon where he basically has a head that's like 3 times as long. So for a lip stretch, he would need 3 Maya units. Well, this would still be the same value. Like when the lip stretch is on, a lip stretch is on. You would just change your set driven keys, like your underlying behind the scenes stuff, you would change. So because that's what you would do for an animator, and in that way you could often share animation. Of course, for like something like a dragon, very stylized, you would have to tweak it to make it match the character and so on. But that is how you would approach it more. You want to make this interface. This is a lot about what rigging is about. It's not just making things look cool, but also make it easy for the animators to make it look even cooler, right? To make cool motions, to easily work with what you have. Um, and yeah, this thing actually, because of the set-driven key setup, was running at like 6 FPS in Maya 2015. In Maya 2017, which this is, without screen recording, it's actually running at 25 FPS, so real time basically, and that's thanks to the evaluation set to parallel and GPU override. That basically will go through the whole process of reading all those SDK nodes a lot faster than the old method, which is super awesome. Um, because if I take one of these and if we just say, like, check out the node editor, you can see for just one control, and this is even the temple, so that usually isn't doing much. So actually, let's get another one, like the um, lip upper. Yeah, that should be a good one. Yeah, right. So you can see just how much stuff, how many nodes are used for this one control, just to be able to reach the different poses. And that's the thing, this is why Judd, like we mentioned earlier on in the thread, this is why Judd wrote a single node to handle this, because all this computation stuff takes time. It's not necessarily that the deformations or anything is time consuming or heavy, it's just going through this whole node network to combine up all the different values to figure out what the final output is. To be fair, I could have scripted up something because you can actually see here there's probably a ton of these that have like the same values. I think I could have used like optimize scene as well, but I'm a bit scared of that. So that could have fastened up the rig, but still, you want to be a bit careful with starting to remove that because suddenly then it could break things as well. Um, but yeah, so yeah, and on yeah, this is based off FACS, this rig. But like you mentioned, like FACS, it's really important to remember that that is not like a computer graphics thing. It is an actual real life system came up with some really smart people um, that basically just tells you which and for which shape for which sorry for which shape that the human face can achieve, which muscles are firing at that time. um, so let me just see, and yeah, in that video that you did link to, that was a control panel, as you say, or it is a rig. That's a facial rig, right? So you would place your joints, because here's the thing is like, you don't place your joints and then do the blend shapes and then you're done. You place your joints, you start doing this where you start like tweaking out your shapes, doing your SDKs, then you kind of, sometimes you have to go back and figure out that your joints are actually in the wrong place depending on how many you have. If you have a low number, this is a decent number. It doesn't really look good in the end. Um, it could deal with more, but this was realistic facial rigging for games, like a cinematic type thing. So it could totally do with more stuff, some more correctives for especially that like chin, like cheek razor thing that looks awful, and it basically is you would do this and you would go backwards and forwards on the skinning and you would do your blend shapes at the very end after you've gotten out everything that you can from a joint. Then you would go in and you would do your correctives, and then you would in the end like package it up nicely by giving the animators like a decent control rig that they can use to like animate with and stuff, right? um, so yeah, I hope this kind of helped clear up some things, because it feels like we're talking a lot about the same things in a bit of circles. So I hope this kind of clears up some things and gives you some more ideas on how to approach this Faceware integration that you have to deal with. Cool. Well, let us know if there's anything else that we can help you with, and hope this clears something up. Catch you on the forums. Bye.